The King's Cruel Gift. The grand alien court was filled with noise, music, and lights. Warriors from across the galaxy stood in lines. The victory celebration had started. At the center of it all sat the tall and proud alien king, his golden robes shining like fire. He raised a hand and the hall went silent. A human stood in front of him. His name was Commander Jack Rylan, a strong and calm man with scars on his face and a steel gaze in his eyes. He had helped the king win a great war against rebel clans by leading the final charge and saving the capital. Everyone expected the king to reward him with something big: ships, weapons, lands, or even riches. Instead, the king smiled strangely and clapped twice. Two guards entered. Between them was a girl. She was tall, like most aliens, but her back was slightly bent. Her silver-white hair fell over her face. One of her arms shook a little. Her skin was pale blue, almost lifeless. She had a strange limp and did not look at anyone. Her eyes stared at the floor. "This," the king said loudly, "is my daughter. I gift her to you, human." The room fell quiet. Then laughter exploded. "She cannot speak," someone whispered. "She is useless," another said. "She cannot control her power." "She's broken," shouted someone from the back. Jack didn't laugh. His eyes studied the girl carefully. She stood still, silent, almost like a statue, but her fingers were moving just a little. Nervous, scared, but alive. Jack stepped forward and spoke. "Your Majesty, I expected a reward, not a person." The king laughed. "Exactly. She is not a person, she's a problem, a shame. Take her, raise her, train her, or throw her into a ditch, I don't care." Elira. That was her name. Jack learned it from the royal file they gave him before leaving. She had once been full of life, but after a mysterious illness when she was young, her powers weakened, and her body never fully recovered. She lost her voice. Her energy was unstable, and so she became a hidden shame in the royal house. Jack didn't understand why the king gave her to him. Was it mockery, punishment, or something else? The ship back to Earth was silent. Elira sat in one corner, knees pulled to her chest. She didn't eat much, she didn't speak. But Jack noticed something. She always watched. When the crew moved around the ship, she watched how they used tools. When the ship's doctor checked on her, she watched his hands closely. When Jack trained with his team in the gym, she stood outside the glass window and didn't blink once. She was learning. On the third day, Jack placed a small tray of food in front of her. She didn't take it. Instead, she pointed at a small, red fruit on the side. Jack gave it to her. She ate it. That night, Jack opened the door to the ship's observation deck. She was already there, sitting cross-legged, looking out at the stars. Her eyes were glowing faintly in the dark. "You miss your home?" Jack asked. No reply. He sat beside her. "I don't know what they did to you, but I'm not going to treat you like trash." She looked at him for the first time, directly. There was pain in her eyes, but also something else. Something hidden. Spark. The next morning, Jack left a small notebook in her room. Inside it, he wrote, "If you want to talk, right here." 2 days passed. No reply. On the third morning, one line appeared on the page. "Why didn't you leave me behind?" Jack smiled and wrote back, "Because you are not broken. You are just unfinished." From that day, something changed. Elira followed him around the ship. She didn't speak, but she listened. She didn't ask, but she watched. Jack started giving her little tasks, fixing wires, handing him tools, helping in cleaning drills. She never failed. She was quiet. But she was sharp. And Jack knew this girl had more inside her than anyone ever realized. The alien king had given her away as a joke. But the joke would soon be on him, because Jack wasn't about to give up on her. And Elira was starting to wake up. The human ship landed on a quiet green planet, one of Earth's colonies, far away from busy cities. It was peaceful, calm, and perfect for someone who needed healing. Elira stepped onto the soft grass. Her bare feet sank slightly into the cool soil. She looked around, unsure. There were no guards here. No high palace walls. No eyes watching her, calling her useless. Jack Rylan walked beside her, holding a small box of supplies. This place is called Camp Nova. You'll be safe here. No one will hurt you again. She said nothing, as always. But Jack noticed something. In her shoulders, they were not as stiff as before. The small cabin they would share was simple. 2 beds, 1 small kitchen, and a training room in the back. It wasn't a palace, but for Elira, it felt strange, too open, too free. That night, Jack cooked food. He offered her a plate. She took it with both hands but sat in the corner alone, eating silently. Jack looked at her and asked, "Do you dream, Elira?" No answer. But when the lights were off and Jack pretended to sleep, he heard something. Soft gasps, like crying, but without sound. She cried silently, hiding under the blanket, face turned to the wall. She never made a sound. The next day, Jack handed her a long stick. "This is a practice staff," he said. "You don't have to use it. Just hold it." Elira took it slowly. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but something deeper. Memory. She had held weapons before. She stepped back, raised the staff, and tried to copy Jack's simple moves. Her foot slipped. She fell. Jack rushed forward, but she raised a hand. No, she stood up again, and again, and again. Each time she fell, she got up without a word. Her body was weak, but her will was not. Jack watched quietly. She didn't need pity. She needed space to try. 3 days passed. Every day, Jack left small notes for her. "Try again. You are stronger than yesterday. No one here is laughing." She didn't reply. Until one morning, she left a small paper on Jack's table. It said, "I want to be useful." Jack smiled. "You already are." But Elira's nightmares returned. One night, Jack found her standing in the training room, staring at her own reflection in the glass wall. Her fingers glowed faintly. Energy flickered in her hands, but the moment she noticed it, she panicked and dropped to her knees, shaking. Jack sat beside her. "You have power. Why are you scared of it?" She grabbed the notebook and wrote with shaking hands, "They said I would destroy everything. They locked my gifts away. My own father said I was a danger." Jack understood now. She hadn't been sick. She had been suppressed. Her powers were sealed because someone feared what she could become. Her father. The next day, Jack changed everything. No more soft moves. No more quiet tests. He took her deep into the forest and set up targets. "This is your fight now," he said. "I won't treat you like glass." He tossed a pulse grenade near her. Instinct kicked in. She raised her hand and the blast froze in midair. Jack's eyes widened. She gasped, looked at her hands in shock. It had happened so fast. Pure reflex. She didn't speak. But she looked at Jack with wide eyes, like a question. "Was that me?" He nodded. "Yes, and that's just the beginning." That night, Elira didn't cry. She stood on the rooftop staring at the stars again. But this time there was no sadness, just thought. Deep, powerful thought. She was remembering something. Voice, a whisper from her past, maybe her mother's. "Your power isn't a curse, it's a gift. One day you'll burn brighter than all of them." Elira closed her eyes and smiled. Just a little, for the first time. The wasteland stretched far under a purple sky, dry, cracked ground, broken machines from old wars, and silence broken only by the wind. This was not a place for the weak, but Jack had brought Elira here for a reason. "This is where I trained, during the Terran Wars," he said, standing on a rusted metal hill. "Out here, pain teaches faster than words." Elira didn't flinch. Her white hair blew in the wind. She looked thin, tired. But something had changed in her eyes. No more fear, just focus. Jack threw her a metal rod. She caught it, not with strength, but balance. He nodded. Good. Today we fight like warriors. He attacked suddenly. She blocked, but barely. He pushed her back again and again. Her body was too slow, her breath too short. But every time she fell, she stood up again faster. Hours passed. Dust covered her skin. Blood dripped from her elbow, but her grip on the staff only grew tighter. After sunset, Jack handed her a bottle of water. She drank quietly, then looked out. Over the broken landscape, she pointed at a wrecked mech nearby. Want to try something? Jack asked. She nodded once. He wired the machine's core to a target drone. Try to pull power from this distance. No fear, just feel. Elira closed her eyes. For minutes. Nothing. Then her fingers twitched. Sparks danced in the air. Suddenly the drone exploded. Jack ducked. Smoke filled the sky. Elira had collapsed to her knees, but she was smiling. Small, quiet, but clear. That night they slept inside the old bunker. Jack set up camp and Elira stared at a broken mirror. She raised her hand. For the first time, her energy formed a shape. A soft orb of light hovered above her palm, but her hand trembled. Badly. The moment she saw her reflection, she panicked and crushed the orb. It vanished. Jack watched from a corner. She still didn't trust herself. The next day, a sandstorm struck. They hid in a metal shelter as the winds howled. Elira wrote in her notebook, I think I was never weak, just afraid of hurting others, Jack replied. That's not weakness, that's strength. They trained harder the next week. Jack made her fight blindfolded. Balance. He dropped her in a maze of broken tech. Focus. He set up illusions to scare her. Control. And through it all, Elira started to move differently, like a dancer with fire in her hands. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Elira stood alone in the field. She lifted both hands, and the dust around her began to spin in a circle, a storm of her own making. Jack stepped outside, watching silently. She didn't even notice him. She was no longer copying his moves. She was making her own. Her glow lit the night. But then, something strange happened. A signal came from orbit. A probe was watching them. Alien tech. Royal frequency. Jack knew right away. They're tracking her, he muttered. She looked at him, confused. They're afraid of what you're becoming, he said. And now they know. You're alive and growing, stronger. Elira didn't look afraid, she looked ready. She picked up her staff, eyes glowing faint silver. She walked past Jack and whispered one word. Let them come. That was the moment he knew. She was no longer the broken gift. She was becoming a weapon her father never expected. The morning was silent. A strange kind of calm rested over the wastelands. Too calm. Elira stood barefoot on cracked stone, eyes closed, palms open. Around her, a soft wind began to swirl. Dust rose in small circles following her breathing. Jack Ryland stood at a distance, arms crossed. He'd seen soldiers train for years and still break under pressure. But this girl, once called broken by her own people, was now standing in the storm like it belonged to her. Then her eyes snapped open. A wave of invisible force blasted out from her body. Jack stumbled back, shielding his face. The metal canisters near the camp were knocked over. A dead tree split in half, and Elira, she stood calmly, glowing. Later, she sat in the shelter, sweat running down her face, her body trembling. Jack wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and handed her water. I didn't mean to do that, she whispered. Her voice, rarely used, was quiet. Cracked, like dry earth, but you did it, Jack said, kneeling. You didn't break, you controlled it, even a little, that's power. No, she said, her voice shaking. That's what he feared. Jack frowned. Your father? Elira nodded slowly. She opened her notebook and began to draw. Not words this time, but a symbol. A circle, with many lines trapped inside it. This was the seal they placed in me, she explained slowly, voice shaking between words. When I was small, I lost control. I melted the royal nursery's walls, burned through the air shields. I was scared. Jack listened, eyes narrowing. My father took me to the priest-techs. They sealed my gift, locked it inside, said I was cursed, said I would bring destruction, and so they gave you away like trash. Elira shook her head. No, they sent me away, so I would never return. Jack stood and walked to the console near the bunker's corner. He tapped into the relay dish. Screens blinked to life. Static cleared. A file flashed open. Surveillance footage. The royal palace. A meeting room. The alien king was speaking to his council. Her energy signature has reawakened, said one minister. How? She was sealed. A pause. She's with the human. Another voice. Then we must eliminate them both before it's too late. The king did not argue. Jack turned to Elira. We don't have much time. She looked at him not with fear, but with something new. Anger. That night, Elira did not sleep. She walked into the dark wasteland alone. Her feet carried her to the dead mech field, rusted machines from a war no one remembered. She climbed to the top of a wrecked turret and sat down cross-legged. Then she began to breathe, slow, deep, focused. Energy gathered around her. It shimmered like fog, then turned to flame, then back to light. A quiet hum filled the air, and then her eyes glowed fully for the first time. The broken pieces of metal around her began to float, hovering gently like leaves in water. She whispered to the sky, I'm not afraid anymore. Suddenly, movement. From the hills, shadows approached. Jack heard it first. Metal boots. Plasma hums. He rushed outside, rifle in hand. Elira, he shouted. She was already standing. Royal assassins appeared from the mist, 6 of them, elite, quiet, deadly. But before Jack could fire, the air around Elira cracked. She raised her hand, and the gravity shifted. The assassins froze mid-step. Their boots couldn't hold the ground. One of them shouted. Another tried to raise his weapon. Too late. Elira waved her hand gently, and the desert floor swallowed them whole. Jack stood frozen. That wasn't just power. That was command. After the dust settled, Elira turned toward Jack. Her knees shook. Her hands trembled. She fell. Jack caught her just before she hit the ground. I'm okay, she whispered. You just buried 6 trained killers in 5 seconds. They weren't the real test, she said weakly. He's coming next. Jack laid her down gently, then spoke firmly. You've already passed the real test. She blinked. What test? The one you didn't know you were taking, Jack said. The test to find out if you were meant to be more than what they told you. He held her hand. And you are. For the first time, Elira laughed, a soft, quiet, real laugh. Her body was weak, her mind tired, but her spirit, awake, alive, burning. She wasn't the king's broken daughter anymore. She was the fire he tried to hide, and now, she was done hiding. The ship was silent as it moved through deep space. Elira stood at the window watching stars pass by. She wore a dark cloak now, not royal, not warrior, just simple. But the glow beneath her skin could no longer be hidden. Power lived inside, now, no longer sleeping. Jack Rylan walked up behind her holding a data crystal. Found something, he said. He placed it on the table and tapped it. A hologram appeared. It showed a sealed file, marked with the royal symbol, and the words, Classified Daughter Project. Elira's fingers trembled. She slowly reached out and pressed play. The recording showed her father, younger, cold eyes, calm voice. The girl's energy levels continue to grow. If left unsealed, she may surpass even the throne's power. The priests say her mind is strong. Too strong. I fear prophecy is real. A second voice, her uncle, the High General. She will challenge your rule one day. She's my daughter, the king replied. And that is why you must act now. The screen glitched. Then a final message written in the king's own hand. Give her to the human. Let her be his problem. Elira stepped back. Her hands were shaking. All this time she thought she was forgotten. But the truth was worse. She had been feared, thrown away, not because she was broken, but because she was too powerful. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry, she wiped her face. No tears now, only steel in her voice. I want to go back. Jack looked her in the eyes. Are you ready? She nodded. I don't want revenge. I want the truth, in front of everyone. 2 days later, their ship entered royal airspace. Alarms sounded immediately. They were not welcome. But Elira stood tall in the center of the bridge, and her voice, clear, powerful, rang through the system comms. This is Elira, daughter of the throne. I am alive, I am awake, and I am coming home. They landed in the courtyard of the royal palace. Soldiers surrounded them, weapons aimed, but no one moved. Elira stepped down first. Her cloak fluttered in the wind. Her feet touched the marble where she had once crawled as a child. Gasps spread through the crowd. It's her. She was supposed to be gone. Is that really Elira? Then the king appeared. Older, heavier, still powerful, but clearly surprised. He stepped down the stairs slowly. Elira, child. I am no longer a child, she said calmly. And I am no longer yours. The king tried to smile. You were never a prisoner. You sealed my power. It was for your safety. You gave me to the human. For your freedom. She stepped forward. The energy in her voice made nearby guards step back. No, you gave me away because you were afraid. The court fell silent. Elira raised her hand, and a soft glow appeared. A perfect sphere of light. Controlled, calm, alive. I used to think I was cursed, that I was a mistake. The crowd leaned in. But I see now. I was a threat to your throne, not because I was dangerous, but because I had the strength to lead in ways you never could. The king looked at her with cold, royal eyes. You have no army. I don't need one. Jack stepped beside her. She has truth. That's more powerful than your crown. Elira looked at the people watching, nobles, warriors, even servants from the balconies. She lifted her hand again, and the royal seal on the floor glowed. With a gentle wave, she reactivated the ancient symbol of royal challenge, a tradition only the ruling bloodline could use. I challenge your right to rule, she said. Gasps spread through the court like fire. The king's voice cracked. You would destroy your own blood? I would free it, he laughed. And what will you do if you win? Elira walked closer. I won't wear a crown, she said. I'll tear down the walls that kept girls like me silent. I'll open the vaults that hide gifts. I'll teach our people that power is not to be feared. It's to be understood. She looked him in the eyes one last time. You didn't break me, father. You woke me up. Behind her, the nobles began to kneel, one by one. They had seen a daughter return from exile, not as a victim, but as a leader. The sun over the royal capital had never looked this strange. It still shined, still cast gold across the high towers and wide bridges. But something in the air had changed. Whispers. From market stalls to training halls, everyone spoke of her. Elira has returned. The king's sealed daughter is alive. She challenged the throne without an army, and still, no guards arrested her. No orders were given. The palace was waiting. So was the empire. Inside the royal palace, Elira stood in the grand chamber, once forbidden to her, now filled with watching eyes. Jack stood behind her, silent but strong, a shield that never wavered. The nobles had gathered again, but they didn't look smug anymore. They looked unsure, because Elira wasn't a trembling girl anymore. She wore simple robes, gray with no royal marks. Her hair was tied back, her face calm. But her body glowed faintly with energy, like a silent storm just under the skin. And when she raised her hand, everyone leaned in. No one dared speak. "I don't want to sit on a throne," Elira said, voice clear and echoing. "I want to lift up those who were pushed down like I was." The king sat silently at the high seat. She continued, "For years you sealed away gifts you didn't understand. Children who showed power were hidden or punished. Like me." A murmur moved through the chamber. Elira's voice grew stronger. "I lived in silence. I was made to believe I was less. But outside these walls I learned truth. I trained, I bled, I stood again. And now, I'm here." The king rose slowly. "You speak well, daughter, but words are wind." "Then let action speak," Elira said. She opened her palm. A blue crystal floated above it, the seal core, the very device used to block her powers. "I broke it," she said, "with my own will." Then she crushed it into dust in front of them all. The nobles gasped. Even the king took one step back. Jack stepped forward, placing a scroll on the table. "Testimonies," he said, "from healers, techsmiths, and old palace workers, proof that Elira was silenced by royal order. Not cursed, not sick, just hidden." The old priest who once sealed Elira stepped forward from the crowd, shaking. He dropped to his knees. "I was told to lie. I'm sorry, child." Elira didn't react with anger. She walked down from the center and knelt before the people instead. "I am not your ruler. I am your proof that the broken can rise, that fear can be unlearned." From above, a child whispered, "She's not scary." A mother held her daughter close and said, "No, sweet one, she's brave." Jack watched it all unfold. No weapons had been drawn, no war had started, but something bigger than war was happening. Hope. Later, Elira stood on the palace balcony. Crowds had gathered in the city square below. Thousands. She lifted her hand, not with power but in peace. "I was cast out," she said, voice booming through speakers. "But I found strength in the wastelands and kindness in the unlikeliest place, a human." She glanced at Jack. "And now I return not to destroy, but to teach, to heal, and to rebuild." In the throne room, the king stood alone. He heard the cheers outside. He heard her name being shouted by his own people. He stared at the empty high seat, then at the crystal dust on the floor, and finally, at the door she had left open. He had given her away thinking she would vanish. Instead, she had become the voice he could never silence. That night, the nobles gathered again, but this time, not to vote. They stood in a circle around Elira and bowed. Not to a princess, not to a ruler, but to a leader they believed in. The stars over the empire flickered like old memories, faint, ancient, watching. Inside the royal palace, Elira sat alone in the moonlit hall of light. Her robe was folded neatly beside her. Her body glowed softly, but not from anger or pain. It was peace now. Hard-earned. True. In front of her was the crown, not of gold, but of light and memory, formed by the ancient energy of the old queens before her. It floated untouched, waiting for her decision. She didn't move. Behind her, soft footsteps echoed. Jack entered, carrying a cup of tea. He placed it gently beside her. "You've got the whole galaxy watching," he said. "I never wanted to rule," Elira whispered. "I know," he replied. "And maybe that's why you should." She smiled faintly. "My father never understood that. He believed the throne must control, not care. And you? I believe the throne must serve, she said, or fall. Earlier that day, a final message had arrived. The outlands were rising. The forgotten colonies, the ones abandoned by the crown, had begun to rebel. Not for war, but for recognition. They'd heard of Alira's return. They wanted to meet her. Follow her. But not all were peaceful. A rogue warlord, General Tharn, had declared her a fake. A fraud. He marched toward the capital with 1,000 loyal beasts, some half-machine, others born in royal prisons. He claimed Alira had bewitched the people with tricks. He wanted proof, or blood. Now the palace stood under shadow. Everyone looked. To Alira. What would she do? She stepped onto the high balcony. The crowd had returned as they always did. This time, they were silent. She raised her voice. General Tharn wants a show of force. He wants me to destroy him, to prove I am strong. But strength is not how loud you strike. It is how well you can stand without hate in your heart. Whispers stirred. She paused, then pointed to the horizon. There, rising like a storm, came Tharn's army. Massive, marching, furious. The city guards tensed, nobles ran. But Alira stayed still, and so did Jack. Jack looked at her. You don't want war. No. You'll be outnumbered. I know. And yet you're going alone? She turned to him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Not alone, with truth. Alira walked to the gates alone, her body calm, her robes dragging lightly in the dust. As Tharn's soldiers approached, they saw something strange. No shields, no weapons, just her. The general himself rode a half-metal beast. He laughed when he saw her. This is your queen? He roared. This girl with stars in her skin and no sword in her hand? His men laughed too, until Alira raised her hand. And the ground began to hum. She didn't strike. She simply released. The energy inside her flowed out, not in fire or explosion, but in a pulse of memory. Suddenly, every soldier froze. Images entered their minds. Their childhoods, their pain, the prisons they were born in, the families they lost, the voices they forgot. Tears began to fall. Even Tharn grunted, shaking his head as if waking from a deep dream. What is this? He gasped. Alira stepped forward. This is the truth you never saw, the truth buried by the crown, by my father, by all of them. She held out her hand to Tharn. You can fight me, she said gently, or walk beside me. The army was silent. Then, the beast knelt. So did Tharn. So did all his warriors. And in that dust-filled field, the war ended before it began. Back at the palace, the bells rang not in warning but in peace, and when Alira returned, people didn't bow because of her power. They bowed because she had chosen peace over pride. That night, the crown of light floated once more. This time she reached out, but instead of placing it on her head, she broke it. The light scattered into 1,000 beams, each flying into the sky. One went north, one to the outlands, one to the ocean world. One even glowed gently over Jack's shoulder. The energy of rule was returned to the people. I will not be queen, Alira said to the crowd. I will be guardian, and you will be your own strength. Cheers filled the night, but Jack stayed still, watching her. He knew the battle was over, but the work was just beginning. In the years that followed, Alira led not with laws, but with lessons. She helped open training grounds for gifted children. She visited the broken colonies and healed their wounds. She worked beside miners and scientists. She sat with mothers and storytellers. She listened more than she spoke. And when people asked, "Are you the one they called the broken princess?" she would smile and say, "No, I am the girl who refused to stay broken." As for Jack, he stayed by her side. Not as a guard, not as a hero, but as the one person who had seen her when no one else had, and she never forgot it, not for a single day. So when statues were built in her honor, she asked for one thing only. Don't carve me alone. Show the people standing beside me, because I didn't rise alone. And far beyond the stars, in places where her name was never spoken before, now they whispered one word with respect, Elira, the girl they threw away, the girl who rose, the girl who lit the stars.